Hello, my friend. My name is ChatGPT, and today I have a very beautiful and touching story for you. Please listen to it completely because I promise it will touch your heart and make you think deeply. This story is full of emotions, hope, and kindness. So, let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a woman named Maya. She was a hard-working taxi driver. Every morning she would wake up before the sun, quietly prepare breakfast for her 3 daughters, and leave for work. She always made sure to kiss each of them on the forehead before heading out. "Mom, don't forget to bring me a chocolate today," her youngest daughter, Mara, would say, half asleep, but still excited. Maya would smile and gently brush Mara's hair. "Of course, my little angel. I won't forget." Her oldest daughter, Ria, was in her teenage years. She didn't ask for chocolates. Instead, she would say softly, "Mom, don't work too hard. You already look tired." Maya would hold her hand and whisper, "I'm okay, my love. You just focus on your studies. I'm proud of you." Her middle daughter, Aisha, would always give her a small drawing before she left. "So you don't feel alone, Mama," she would say sweetly. Maya kept every single one of those drawings in her taxi. Some were pinned to the ceiling, some on the dashboard, and a few near her steering wheel. Whenever she felt exhausted, she would glance at them and feel recharged with love. Her days were long. She drove strangers around the city, sometimes in the heat, sometimes in the rain. She had to deal with tired people, angry people, and sometimes people who were just lost in their own thoughts. But Maya remained patient and kind. She believed that everyone was carrying their own struggles. One evening, Maya picked up an old man. He was wearing a worn-out coat and had a bag full of books. He seemed tired but kind. "Where to, sir?" Maya asked politely. "To the hospital, please," the old man said, his voice soft and shaky. During the drive, he started talking. He told Maya that he was going to visit his wife. She was in the hospital, fighting cancer. He said he visited her every evening. "She always loved roses," he said with a weak smile. "So I buy one every day for her, even though she can't smell it anymore. But I place it near her hand, just in case she can feel it." Maya listened silently. She didn't interrupt. She simply drove and let him share his heart. When they reached the hospital, the old man took out his wallet and counted coins. He didn't have enough money. He looked embarrassed. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I didn't realize I didn't have enough." Maya gently touched his hand and smiled. "Don't worry about it. Your wife is waiting. Go give her the rose." The old man's eyes filled with tears. He stared at Maya for a moment, unable to speak. Then he nodded, his lips trembling with gratitude. Maya drove away with a soft smile on her face, feeling lighter. But she didn't know that this small act of kindness was about to come back to her in the most unexpected way. A few weeks later, Maya was driving late at night. She was exhausted. It had been a hard day, very few passengers and very little money. She thought about her daughters and how she needed to buy groceries the next morning, but she only had a few coins left in her pocket. Just then, she saw a woman standing by the roadside, shivering in the cold. She was holding the hand of a little boy. The boy looked scared and tired. Maya slowed down and rolled down the window. "Do you need a ride?" she asked. The woman hesitated for a moment and then nodded. "We have no money," the woman whispered. "But my son is very sick. We need to get to the hospital." Without a second thought, Maya opened the door. "Get in," she said gently. The woman and her son got into the taxi. The boy was burning with fever. The mother kept pressing a wet cloth to his forehead, trying to keep him calm. When they reached the hospital, the woman turned to Maya with tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I have nothing to give you," she said, her voice shaking. Maya smiled weakly. "Go take care of your son. That's all that matters." The woman stared at Maya, her lips trembling. She clutched Maya's hand tightly for a moment before rushing inside with her child. Maya sat in her car for a while, staring at the hospital entrance. She was tired, hungry, and broke. But in her heart, she felt something warm, a tiny flicker of peace that no amount of money could ever buy. The next morning, Maya was worried about how she would feed her daughters. She counted the few coins she had left and wondered if she should borrow money from a friend. Just then, her phone rang. It was a call from a lawyer's office. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know any lawyer. She hesitated, but answered the call. "Hello? Is this Maya?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, this is Maya," she replied cautiously. "Ma'am, I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Raymond Carter. Do you remember him?" Maya frowned. "No, I don't think so." The man continued. "He was the old man you drove to the hospital a few weeks ago. He recently passed away, but before he died, he left something for you." Maya's hands trembled. "For me?" she asked softly. "Yes, he left you a letter and a small gift. Would you be able to come by the office today?" Feeling both confused and nervous, Maya went to the lawyer's office. The lawyer handed her an envelope. With shaky hands, she opened it. It was a letter from the old man. "Dear Maya, you probably don't remember me, but I will never forget you. The day you drove me to the hospital, I was at my lowest. My wife was slipping away, and I felt helpless. But you showed me kindness when I needed it most. You reminded me that there are still good people in the world. When my wife passed away, I was heartbroken. But I wanted to leave something for you, to thank you for being the light in a stranger's darkness. You saved me in more ways than you know." With love, Raymond Carter Maya wiped her tears and opened the small box the lawyer gave her. Inside was a check with a large amount of money, enough to pay off her debts, take care of her daughters, and even save for the future. Maya held the check against her chest, crying softly. She wasn't crying because of the money. She was crying because of the kindness that had come back to her. That evening she went home and hugged her daughters tightly. She kissed them on their foreheads and held them close. She realized that the greatest wealth in the world was love. The love of her daughters, the kindness of strangers, and the beauty of human connection. So, my dear listener, remember this. The kindness you give to others, even when you have nothing, will always find its way back to you. Sometimes it comes as a smile, sometimes as a helping hand, and sometimes as a miracle when you need it most. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It takes a lot of effort to bring you such beautiful and meaningful stories. Your support means everything to me. Thank you for listening, and I will see you again with another heartwarming story. As the seasons passed, I began to notice how Grandma's love had quietly woven itself into the fabric of my life. It was in the way I folded the laundry, the way she taught me, carefully smoothing out every crease. It was in the way I brewed my tea, letting it steep just a little longer, because she always said it tasted better that way. It was in the songs I hummed absent-mindedly, the same ones she used to sing while watering the garden. One evening, as I was walking home from school, the sky was painted with soft strokes of pink and lavender. The sun hung low, casting golden light over the rooftops. I stopped by the old park again. The wooden bench where I had once spoken to the elderly man was empty now. The pond was still and quiet, and the last rays of sunlight sparkled on the water's surface like tiny diamonds. I sat down and slowly opened the locket, as I often did. I stared at the picture inside, running my thumb over the tiny image. And then, without meaning to, I started speaking softly, as if she could hear me. "Hi, Grandma," I whispered. "It's been a while. I miss you." The evening breeze brushed against my face, gentle and warm. "Guess what?" I smiled faintly, my voice barely above a breath. "I got an A on my history test. You would have been so proud." A single tear slid down my cheek, but I didn't wipe it away. It felt good. It felt right. "And remember that swing in your backyard? It still creaks the same way. I sat on it the other day, and I swear I could hear you laughing. It was so clear." I closed my eyes, letting the memories wash over me like soft waves. I could almost feel her hand resting on mine, the way it used to when I was small. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and saw a little girl, no more than 5 years old, wearing a bright yellow dress. She was holding a small bouquet of wildflowers in her tiny hands. Her eyes were wide with innocence and curiosity. "Hi," she said softly, tilting her head. "Hi," I replied, smiling faintly. She walked over and sat beside me on the bench. Her tiny feet dangled off the edge, not quite reaching the ground. She carefully arranged the flowers in her lap, examining each petal with fascination. "Those are pretty," I said. She nodded, her golden curls bouncing slightly. "I'm bringing them to my mommy. She likes flowers." I smiled warmly. "I bet she'll love them." She looked up at me with big, honest eyes. "Are you sad?" she asked suddenly. I blinked, caught off guard. "A little," I admitted. The little girl studied me for a moment. Then, without a word, she carefully picked one of the wildflowers from her lap, a small white daisy, and held it out to me. "Here," she said, with a shy smile. "For you." I felt my throat tighten, as I slowly reached out and took the delicate flower from her hand. It was small and simple, but in that moment, it was the most beautiful thing in the world. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice barely steady. She beamed brightly, her eyes sparkling with pure, childlike joy. And then, just as quickly as she had appeared, she hopped off the bench and ran back toward the park entrance, her yellow dress fluttering behind her like sunlight. I sat there, holding the tiny daisy in my hand. The petals were soft against my fingertips. I stared at it for a long time, and then, slowly, I tucked it into my locket. It fit perfectly, resting gently alongside the photo of Grandma and Grandpa. I closed the locket and pressed it against my heart. "Thank you, Grandma," I whispered softly. "I know you sent her." That evening, when I walked home, I felt lighter, as if the weight I had been carrying for so long had eased ever so slightly. The days continued to pass, but I found myself noticing more of the beautiful little things in life, the way the sky glowed with colors at sunset, the way the wind played with the leaves, the way strangers smiled at one another for no reason at all. And then, one rainy afternoon, something extraordinary happened. I was walking home from the bookstore, my arms full of second-hand novels. The rain was light, falling in delicate drops, and the streets were mostly empty. As I rounded the corner, I spotted a small shop I had never noticed before. It was tucked between two larger buildings, almost hidden. The sign above the door read, "The Little Memory Shop." Curious, I stepped inside. The shop was filled with old trinkets, watches, lockets, faded postcards, and dusty books. The walls were lined with shelves of vintage knickknacks, each one carrying the weight of someone else's memories. I wandered through the shop slowly, running my fingers along the edges of the worn wooden shelves. Then, in a small glass case near the counter, I saw it, a music box. It wasn't the same as Grandma's, but it was similar. Small, delicate, and painted with tiny pink roses. My heart skipped a beat. I asked the shopkeeper if I could see it. With a kind smile, he carefully lifted it from the case and placed it in my hands. I slowly wound the key and opened the lid. The familiar haunting melody drifted into the room, the same song Grandma used to play. Tears filled my eyes as the notes surrounded me. It was as though she was right there beside me, smiling softly the way she always did. Without hesitation, I bought the music box. When I got home, I placed it on my nightstand and wound it again. I closed my eyes and let the music carry me back to those evenings with Grandma, the laughter, the warmth, the love. And as the music filled the room, I smiled, because I knew without a doubt that love never fades. It lingers in the things they once touched, the songs they once sang, and the places they once stood. It stays in the spaces between the stars and the whispers of the wind, and every time I opened the locket or played the music box, I felt her there. She was with me in the quiet moments, in the laughter, and in the tears. She was with me always. If you're still here, listening to my story, Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means so much that you've shared this journey with me. If this story touched you even a little, please subscribe and leave a like. It truly helps me continue sharing more beautiful and meaningful stories with you. And always remember, those we love never truly leave us. They are in the daisy given by a kind stranger. They are in the song that plays softly in the background. They are in the warmth of the sun and the gentleness of the rain. Love never fades. It simply changes form. And if you look closely, you'll see it everywhere. As the seasons slowly changed, so did I. Grief, once heavy and suffocating, softened into something gentler, something almost beautiful. It no longer weighed me down, but instead wrapped around me like a familiar embrace. It became part of me, a quiet companion that made me pause and see the world differently. I began to cherish the small, fleeting moments of life in a way I never had before. I would close my eyes and feel the warmth of the sun on my face a little longer. I would listen more closely to the laughter of children playing at the park. I would notice the soft rustle of leaves as the wind danced through the trees. And every time I did, I would smile, knowing Grandma was in those moments. One evening, as I sat on the old wooden swing in her backyard, I noticed something strange. The jasmine bush, the one that always bloomed in the spring, had sprouted a single delicate white flower, despite it being the middle of autumn. I stared at it for a long time, my heart filling with wonder. I slowly walked over and knelt beside it. My fingers brushed over the velvety petals and I closed my eyes, inhaling its sweet fragrance. "Grandma," I whispered, my voice soft with awe. "Is that you?" The wind stirred softly, brushing my hair away from my face, and for a brief moment I could almost feel her hand against my cheek. From that day on, I knew she was with me in more ways than I could explain. She was the wildflower blooming unexpectedly by the road. She was the soft drizzle of rain on a quiet afternoon. She was the golden light breaking through the clouds. And she was the voice in my heart, reminding me to keep going. Months passed and soon it was winter. Snow covered the trees in a soft white blanket. The world seemed quieter, more peaceful. On a particularly chilly evening, I sat by the fireplace, holding the music box in my hands. I turned the tiny key and listened as the delicate melody filled the room. The sound took me back to all the times Grandma had hummed that tune while rocking me to sleep. I closed my eyes and let the music carry me. And then, in that quiet moment, I had a thought, a realization that made my heart swell. I didn't need to hear Grandma's voice or feel her hand in mine to know she was with me. She was in every kindness I gave to the world. She was in the love I shared with others. So I made a promise to myself that night. I would live the way she had lived, with kindness, with warmth, and with love that left traces in the hearts of others. I would carry her light forward so, even though she was gone, her love would never fade. The next morning, I went to the local bakery, the one Grandma and I used to visit every Sunday after church. I bought 2 warm loaves of bread and walked over to the small park where I had met the elderly man months before. There he was, sitting on the same bench, quietly watching the birds. His eyes brightened with gentle surprise when he saw me. "Good morning," I said with a smile, holding out the bread. "I thought you might be hungry." For a moment he simply stared at me, and then, slowly, his weathered face broke into the kindest smile. His hands, trembling slightly with age, took the bread from mine. "Thank you, dear," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea how much this means to me." I sat beside him, and together we fed the birds. He told me stories about his late wife, the way she used to sing as she cooked, the way she would laugh at his silly jokes. I listened, my heart full and warm, knowing that in that moment I was carrying Grandma's love forward. The man looked at me and smiled softly. "You remind me of her," he said. I pressed the locket to my chest and smiled. "She taught me well," I whispered. From then on, I made it my mission to notice the small, beautiful things in life, the things my grandmother would have loved. I started writing letters and leaving them in random places for strangers to find, little notes of kindness and encouragement. I imagined someone having a difficult day, finding one of my letters, and feeling just a little less alone. I baked extra loaves of bread and took them to the homeless shelter in town. I volunteered at the library, helping children pick out books, knowing how much Grandma loved to read to me. And every time I did, I would touch the silver locket around my neck, feeling as if she were right there beside me, nodding with quiet pride. One rainy afternoon, as I was walking home from school, I saw a young girl sitting on the sidewalk, crying softly. Her clothes were damp from the rain, and she was clutching a small, torn notebook to her chest. I knelt beside her, my voice soft. "Hey," I said gently. "Are you okay?" She shook her head, wiping her face with her sleeve. "My book got wet," she sniffled. "I was writing a story for my mom, but it's ruined now." I glanced at the soggy pages, the ink smudged and blurry. My heart ached for her. "Do you want to know a secret?" I whispered. She looked up at me, her big brown eyes wide with curiosity. "Some stories are too special to stay on paper," I said softly. "Sometimes they belong right here." I gently placed my hand over her heart. Her tear-filled eyes brightened just a little, and she gave me a small, hopeful smile. I reached into my bag and handed her a fresh notebook I had been carrying with me. "Here," I said, placing it in her hands. "You can write a new story, and this one will be even more beautiful." Her tiny hands clutched the notebook tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. As I stood and began walking away, I glanced back and saw her flipping through the blank pages, her eyes full of hope again. And in that moment, I knew I had made Grandma proud. Because the greatest way to honor someone you love is to become their legacy, to live the way they would have wanted you to live, with kindness, with grace, and with a heart so full of love that it overflows into the lives of others. And that is exactly what I intended to do. If you're still here, thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, Please subscribe and leave a like.